Just wanted to do a little bit of a talk on a guy called Ezra. Ezra is a chap who was in the Old Testament, in the Bible, and an amazing guy who was very involved in organizing things when God's people were returning and getting things sorted out, built, and doing an incredible job in leadership as well. And I'm going to read a little bit at the beginning from Ezra chapter 1. And this is what it says. In the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord fulfilled the prophecy he had given through Jeremiah. He stirred the heart of Cyrus to put this proclamation in writing and to send it throughout his kingdom. This is what King Cyrus of Persia says. And then he talks about the rebuilding of the temple, the plan to rebuild the temple for God's people to worship the true God. So King Cyrus of Persia was a man who clearly something happened to him. He really got the heart of what God was planning for his people. And he saw something which was incredible, really, because he wasn't a Jewish leader. He wasn't involved with God's people at all. He was nothing of that sort. He was a king of Persia, quite different. But he was God's tool, God's instrument. It talks about him in Isaiah 45 as well, and how God uses someone in that position of power in an incredible way to be part of the solution, part of the answer, making sure things come into place. And it's very clear at the beginning of Ezra chapter 1 that this was a fulfillment of a prophecy that Jeremiah had received. So Jeremiah, one of the prophets before God's people went off to Babylon, before they were taken into captivity, Jeremiah was somebody who was talking about that. He could see it coming. He could see what was on the way, and God was showing him that. And it wasn't a popular message. He wasn't a popular man. He had some really rough times. People really didn't want to hear what he had to say. It wasn't a very palatable message. It wasn't politically very popular. He wasn't saying it because he was winning friends and influencing people. And the amazing thing is, though, it was true. It was God's plan, but there was also a great plan to bring God's people back to the land where He wanted to return them to after 70 years. And I think very often Christians think about a verse in Jeremiah, quite frequently Jeremiah 29:11, which is very popular. Little thought that Christians often have. I know the plans I have for you, plans for a future and a hope, plans for good and not for evil, for a future and a hope. God's got great plans for us, and we often kind of we want to know good plans, we want to know good things, we want to understand the good stuff that's ahead, we want to be looking with anticipation at all the wonderful things that are going to be unfolding for our future. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great to have expectation, it's great to have hope, it's great to have a sense of anticipation for good things ahead. But what's important with Jeremiah is that he also said, there's going to be this period of captivity, there's going to be a time you're going to be in exile. It's going to feel strange, it's going to feel odd, but there's a plan afterwards. There's a plan that God has something good for the future. So the beginning of Ezra talks about this fulfillment of this plan. And the good thing is God has a good purpose. So if you're in that situation right now, we can feel like that. I think it's so relevant to the situation with COVID around the world, wherever you are, in the UK or anywhere else. We're in this strange season, aren't we? This strange kind of, it does feel like an exile. It does feel like everything's on hold. It just feels like there's a pause button on so many things, or it feels it's a slightly weird world. And we don't know what that looks like, 6 months' time, a year's time. It's not totally clear. But what we do know is God has a good plan. Sometimes, He will work in situations. There will be times that are uncomfortable, that are not easy times. But Ezra really shows us in this book and this this particular leader, Ezra, as well, shows us that there is a purpose and a plan, and God has a longer term view of things. He has a longer term vision of what things should pan out like, what our lives will look like, what our futures will look like. And he always has a purpose.